I am talking to Adam Saxton, guy in a cube, in the cube, and that's coming up next. Adam, thank you so much for the invitation.
Yes.
I was able to join the live stream, the Power BI Livestream Q&A this morning.
Yeah, it was a blast.
Awesome.
Chat is bananas as always.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm very happy that you and your wife were able to make it here. The data bus is in our driveway. It's exciting.
It is. We're right outside your house and your studio.
Yeah.
And this was amazing.
This is the studio in all its glory.
Well, and there's, over the years, this has been a bit of a transition.
Yes.
You started in your cube.
Yeah, for Guy in a Cube, I was actually in a cubicle. So some people ask me, like, what is cube? Like, is it a multidimensional cube? Am I in the multidimensional cube and like being in the matrix? And no, it was an actual cubicle. I was in the Las Colinas office at Microsoft in support.
Right. Which is near Dallas.
I was there for like 10 years or so. And so I did that. And then once I moved over to kind of the product team side of things, I didn't need to be in the office anymore, so I could work from home. And my wife's family's outside of Houston, so we're now down in Houston and just working from home.
And you've got a great space here.
Yeah, it's very big. So we can do a lot of. So when we were doing the live stream, we've got theater seating and a surround sound theater right behind this desk, and we had Paul set up on the theater seating, and I rearranged one of my cameras, and we had lights, and just moved it all around. And
for the casual observer coming in here and looking around, one might say that you're somewhat into tech.
I have an admission to make. I love gear. I love gear.
You love toys.
I do like toys, and it's one of those things. So one of the things I just purchased, I'm waiting for it to arrive, is I'm building out a flight simulation setup that will go right next to this. It's going to be right over here. So I'm going to have like a 2 things set up right next to each other. It's going to be great. And my wife, as I was ordering this, she's just like, "Do you need it?" And I'm like, "Have you seen what I have?" I'm like, "Do I need any of this?"
Define need.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't need any of it. I need a laptop. That's what I need, and that's it. So,
So in all seriousness, I mean, having tech toys, working with computers, working with audio and video equipment, that's all cool.
Yeah.
And it's fun to a point, but I've known you for a long time, and I know that you do this because you love to give back.
Yes.
And I think you like to help people.
I love helping people. So I was in support for a long time. I actually started in support when I was a senior in high school. I was supporting Windows 95. So I was a contractor for Microsoft. Being in high school with a Microsoft badge, I will say, has somewhat of a cool factor to it, at least for me personally.
And this was what year?
It was 1996, 97.
Right. Windows 95.
Yeah,
sure.
So it was Windows 95. It was right before Windows 95. There was like a second thing for it. I forget the name of it.
Yeah.
And then Windows 98 came out right after that. And then I supported through Windows Millennium, or Windows 98 Second Edition, and then Windows Millennium.
Windows
and it was right when Windows 2000 was coming out that I ended up getting into programming, and then went off and got some contractor jobs doing programming and learned that. And then I came back to supporting at Microsoft, doing in their developer as an actual Microsoft full-time employee. So,
okay.
But through all that time, like, I had that love of like helping people, right? I like solving problems. I like, for me, and this is the thing that I loved about programming, was programming, the logical aspects of it make sense to me. And I can see when things work, and like they make sense to me. And when I was in support, getting an understanding of the technology and the code behind it, it's an application, and when things break, and understanding the flow of items, the flow of data, the flow of the little ones and zeros, being able to help people resolve those items, learning about the technology, and hearing feedback of like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for fixing this. That's what I love. Like I love doing
feels good,
that.
doesn't it?
Yeah, and then I got involved in the community of overall the SQL community, and then into the Power BI community, and like speaking at user groups and sessions and connecting with people, getting to know people on Twitter, building that network of both internal and external Microsoft, and just continuing to help and give back that's what I love. When I was in support, like some of my mentors had this outlook, and I kind of took it on myself, is my whole goal is to put myself out of a job, putting things out there for people to discover on their own, which then means that I'm not needed.
And you've been with Microsoft for what, 15-ish years?
Almost 16 years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it hasn't worked. You still have a job.
Well, no, I'm still working on that goal. So, and I'm confident that I will always be working on that goal. I will, but the goal of the giving back, and whether it's blogging, whether it's videos, documentation updates, getting things where people can discover answers on their own is very important to me, and part of the reason why I give back and get things out there. So when we talk about Guy in a Cube, yes, I work at Microsoft. The Guy in a Cube piece that Patrick and I do are...
this isn't your day job.
It's not the day job. We do this for the 7 years now that I've been doing Guy in a Cube, we do this on our own time. I'm up early in the morning, usually by 5:30 in the morning. And then weekends, I'm like doing this stuff in the live stream, like those are my Saturdays. And I would spend time, just working and editing videos. I mean, it used to be, I have a video editor now, so that's saved a lot of time, but I would, like my whole weekends consumed with video editing. And that's when I did it, so.
My story is different, of course, but there are a lot of things that you've described that I relate to. So I started in tech support in the IT field. I began working for a company that makes medical billing software. I know that Crystal does medical billing, and we be anxious to kind of compare notes about. I worked for a company called Metasoft. It was a really kind of low end package. But I started in tech support and really found that I liked solving problems. And you and I met because I had a problem that needed to be solved.
Yes, with one of the other loves of my life.
Yes, the three-headed dog from
Kerberos. Kerberos. Fluffy's right over there.
Oh, is he? Awesome. The three-headed dog from
The three-headed dog from, that's from Harry Potter.
Yes,
Yeah. Yes.
But so it was I don't know, circa 2008-ish.
Somewhere around there. Yeah.
I was struggling with getting SQL Server reporting services, which really is the tool that I had wrapped my career.
And that's how we
around.
Bonded also, was around reporting services. And
we're trying to get that work in SharePoint, across different service accounts, which required constrained delegation and Kerberos. And I don't have the mind for security, like you do, I think. And so I called CSS. I called Microsoft support. And I remember that it had to go through the escalation chain. And I remember that the conversation was something like, well, we need to send you to a Senior Escalation Engineer, and we've got the guy.
There's one guy.
Yes, and absolutely. There was one other guy who I worked with to solve a different problem. And that was John Sermon.
Oh yeah, John was great. John's great.
And John was the kind.
I will say he's not necessarily. He was good on Kerberos as well. So he knows some of those aspects. So he and I have had conversations on it. But
to finish the story, you and I spent hours on the phone together working through this problem, setting up service accounts and service principal names, and doing all the things that are necessary to set up delegation and Kerberos, and magically it worked.
We got it working.
Yeah.
Oh, there's no magic to it. It just works. There's no magic.
I have avoided setting up Kerberos just through the rest of my career as much as possible.
So when we think of like Power BI and the world of cloud nowadays, I remember being sad when Power BI really started getting going, and I'm like, I'm not going to get Kerberos questions anymore because we're in the cloud now. Like there is no Kerberos.
There's still use cases.
And then the gateway was augmented to support Kerberos SSO through the gateway. And I'm like, oh, it's back. It's back. And so, like I was telling you earlier that there are still customer cases where Kerberos comes up every once in a while. Like there's 2 items going on right now where I'm working those and trying to get them to work cross-domain, constrained delegation, goodness, and
yeah,
I'm happy.
So transitioning from senior support escalation engineer to what was the inspiration for Guy in a Cube? How did it start?
So this was one of those things where it was a journey. So the first upload of Guy in a Cube video was December 2014. Back, I want to say back when I had hair, but I didn't have hair back then either. And so I'm in, one of my mentors was Bob Ward, very influential person on my career and just a good friend. And he got me into community speaking, which I'd never done. So past 2008 past Summit 2008 was the first time I spoke. And he also inspired me to start getting into blogging. Mm-hmm. And so he very much had a heart of a teacher, and just through that, I developed the same mentality. And I started saying, all right, and he invited me to blog. It was the PSS SQL blog. I don't know if you remember that blog. He and Bob Dorr it was mostly SQL engine stuff.
Yeah.
But if you go back and look at the archives,
Bob's Center.
There's a bunch of reporting services blogs that are there as well, and those were all done by yours truly.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, sure, I'll start blogging. And so I started doing, like, I don't know, 1 a month, just as I could find time. And the way I was doing the blogging, because I was helping customer cases. I was working customer cases. And one of the things in support is when we close the case, we have to send a summary email to the customer. Mm-hmm. And one thing I got good at, and to this day, like this is a strength that Patrick and I have, of just recreating a demo or a reproduction of the issue with sample data very quickly. And so when a customer case would happen, usually I like to play with the bits, right? Like I like to figure it out. I like to try different things. That's how I learn. And so when someone says, hey, this isn't working, I'm like, well, you explain the scenario. Let me reproduce the issue, and then I'll be able to answer the question. And so with the Kerberos stuff, I had a 9 VM Hyper-V instance on my laptop with a full cross-domain farm and SharePoint. So I could test these scenarios and see what worked and what didn't. And like as error message come up, I'm like, I know what that error is because I've hit it before. That's how I fix things. And so as part of that, I decided, I'm like, I've already got the repro with sample data. Let me make a blog on it. And so the blog became my summary to the customer. And so I just started doing that and flexing the muscle. And I hear struggles today of folks starting to get into blogging or into video, and it's intimidating, right? So you're putting yourself out there, and it's like, oh, it's not good. I want it to be perfect.
But you have to start somewhere.
You got to start somewhere. And I go back to my first blog, I go back to my first video, and they're awful. Like I hate them. I want to take them down.
But look at how far you've come since then.
And I leave them up there as that's what we can refer back to as that was where I was in the beginning of my journey, compared to where I am now. And as I did that more, Power BI started coming out. And so I was just like, look, I don't want to do the Power BI blogs on the PSS SQL blog. Just from a branding, I'm like, it doesn't. So I'm like, look, I talked to a few people. We started up the Power BI support blog. And at this time, it was Power BI with Office 365. And I went to the Office 365 folks, both in Excel and SharePoint, that were working on this with me at the time. I said, look, if we do, because they wanted this to happen. And I'm like, if we do this, this cannot turn into the Atom blog. Other people have to contribute to this, because if it's just me blogging, I'm going to go do that on PSS SQL. We gotta be more people need to contribute to this. No one ever did. It was just me. And so I then had this idea. Sometimes I have these ideas, and I went to my wife, and I'm like, I want to start doing video, and she's like, oh boy. I'm like,
I think she was able to see down the road and see what this might turn into.
What she was worried of is that because I'm like, when I do something, I want to go full board, right? I'm in.
I think a lot of people recognize that about you, Adam.
I'm all in. And so this is what I wanted in the beginning when I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
And Crystal was just like, hold on, why don't we start small and make sure this isn't a 6-month fad, right? Because you tend to you get really energetic and then you like move on to something else. I'm like, okay. So I got a Blue Yeti mic, and I got a little junky webcam, and I got a license to Camtasia. And so I just started making videos. And I did the video with the blog. So on the PSS support blog, or the Power BI support blog, as I did a blog, I did a video with it. So I was doing both. And then I got to the point where I was just like, I'm done with the blogs. I'm just going to do the video. And so as part of that, though, I started the channel Guy in a Cube. And I remember talking to Bob, and Bob he was like the senior technical leader on the SQL support side. And he had, the big title and everything. He would get into the trenches. He would do the work. But we'd always, Bob Dorr and I would always joke with him. I'm like, oh, Bob, you're up on high. We're in the trenches doing the work. You're just, you're the leader. You're in your office. And he's like, no. I'm just a guy in a cube, man.
Just a guy in a cube.
And I'm like,
just a guy in a cube.
Can I use that? Like, I want to do a YouTube channel, and I want to use that as the name of the YouTube channel. He's like, yeah, I don't care. Because we were the same mentality, right? We were just doing the work. We were helping people. And to this day, like, both of us we still have that mentality of like, look, we'll help. And so he didn't know where this was going to go. I thought I was going to get shut down early on. I actually thought the marketing department was going to shut me down because I wasn't necessarily on message I was just doing my own thing. But it aligned to the business. It was helping people. It was spreading the word of Power BI. So
let's talk about that. I work with customers who use a variety of different products, different vendors, different platforms. You don't see the Microsoft culture, the same kind of culture with a lot of other products. I think that the superheroes in the industry, the speakers, the authors, the folks who are out there, they're for different reasons than I think that you do this or I do this. What is it about Microsoft culture that makes this possible?
I'm biased towards Microsoft.
Sure,
I don't necessarily
of course.
know. I'm sure there are people in other communities that do similar things. I probably even would go so far as, yes, there are people in Microsoft that echo that heart of a teacher and whatnot. I'm sure there are others that don't, and they do it for different reasons. From a culture perspective, in being in Microsoft for a long time, I've seen culture shifts within Microsoft. I've been blessed to know a lot of folks in the community that have a similar mindset. Maybe it's just because I gravitated towards them. Folks that have that heart of a teacher and that mentality. In my career at Microsoft, it was encouraged to give back, and those were things seen as going above and beyond. And from an annual performance perspective, those were weighted into your annual bonuses and whatever you would get from monetization. So there was some incentive to do that. But usually the folks and I've seen so many folks in Microsoft that are good at doing this, they're doing it because they have a passion for it.
Well, and I think that Microsoft attracts a lot of people who kind of have that gene, who just, you use the word community a few times now. And when you kind of look at what community is, it's not just an extension of the marketing message. It's not, hey, let's go create a culture where it looks like we're helping people. It's genuine.
No, and so on the Power BI spot specifically, I will say that the Power BI community, both internally and externally, is amazing. There are so many people on the Power BI product team, not just on the product team, but even marketing and from the services side, support, whatnot. They're all on Twitter. They're helping answer questions, whether it's on the MVP aliases, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's in the community side.
Right, through their own personal blogs.
Yeah. And this is going up to the upper leadership. So like James Phillips, Arun,
Yep.
they're all on Twitter and they answer questions and you can engage and they'll listen, they'll respond.
And some of them are very, very, very quick to respond.
Yes.
I mean, folks like Amir Netz, you mentioned James Phillips. You know, I chatted with James for a long time in the early days of Power BI, a la Power BI desktop. And I said, hey, could you come down and speak at our SQL Saturday? Yeah, sure, I'd be happy to fly down. Just have my assistant arrange it. Whoa,
Yeah.
dude,
Yeah.
a vice president came down and spoke at our SQL Saturday. And you just don't find that in a lot of places. Yeah. That's work, and then there's life.
There's life.
How do you balance work and life?
I will say that the way that I balance work and life is by having an incredible wife.
Okay,
Crystal is
that's a good answer.
Crystal is an amazing person. We've been married for like 17 years now. We've known each other for 20. That's been a journey, as most marriages are. But we're at a spot now where I feel like, I'm not going to speak for her, I hope this is true, but I feel like we're each other's best friend. We communicate to each other. We talk about what's going on, like what are the schedules. Our kids are both teenagers, so they're busy with school. We've got to balance that. And honestly, sometimes we have to schedule things and we need to compare the schedules. That's just a fact of life. We intentionally make time for the family. I make time for Guy in a Cube. There's things for Microsoft that have to be done. But we communicate. Communication is the key there. She's very understanding. She's been very supportive.
What were we talking about?
Take three. How do you unwind?
How do you unwind? Well, you started to answer the question. So you work with a very high level of intensity. Having worked with you, and we recently actually worked through, you were helping us as a member of the CAT team representing Microsoft.
Yep.
We recently,
Very recently?
Yeah, worked through a paginated report issue, and that was extremely helpful. But I know that you're pretty intense on task. Yeah. So you've got to have a way to unplug.
I do. Video games, 100%. The Crystal is very aware of this as well, and so that's why she's supporting the flight simulator rig that will be coming out, and it will be glorious. Absolutely no justification for it. There's no way I can justify it.
I don't believe that. All right.
So
thank you.
Yeah.
Adam.
Paul,
Thank you
as
very
always,
much for your time.
It's a pleasure. It's great to see you.
Yeah, you as well.